What's going on, everybody? My name is Box from Box and Jackalope, and today I wanted to talk about a game that really means a lot to me, and that's Final Fantasy XIII. In the future, I really hope we see a somewhat remastered version of this game. Now, I don't think anything needs to be done to the graphics or cutscenes. These are beautiful as is, and honestly, we're way ahead of their time when this game launched. In fact, if you actually play this game on the Xbox One S, you'll get a very good experience. Same with PC. I've been replaying Final Fantasy XIII on my computer, and I'm just amazed at how gorgeous this game was. For those who don't know, Final Fantasy XIII-2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I think it's the perfect sequel that fixes so many issues with its predecessor. From storytelling, to pacing, to gameplay, XIII-2, in my opinion, is an absolute masterpiece and should definitely be commended. In the future, I'd like to do actually my own video on why XIII-2 is such a special game to me. In the modern day of gaming, I've seen many Final Fantasy fans ask for a port of the trilogy on PS5, and I wholeheartedly agree. I would love to play these games on my PlayStation 5. 13 is a polarizing entry for some, but for people like me, these three games mean a lot to me, to the point where I would constantly defend them in a debate to somebody. Now, in terms of remastering the games, personally, there are small things I would do to XIII-2 and Lightning Returns, such as like the frame rate in XIII-2 would dip every so often, and I think that's something that on modern hardware should be expected to be fixed if they do a port of them. And Lightning Returns, I think, runs fine enough and doesn't need too many more improvements to it. But XIII-1, I think, in this trilogy is the game that could really benefit from having a soft remaster. I don't think Square would go through the trouble to remake the game and fix the linearity at this point. I think there are small quality of life changes from XIII-2 that could make 13 a largely improved game. Some of you might be thinking, Box, why are you talking about this in 2021? And the reason is I've actually been playing Final Fantasy XIII again for a retrospective on the channel, and this really was just kind of fresh in my mind, so I wanted to make this its own separate video. Final Fantasy XIII-1 really has a slow start. I love the storyline at the beginning of the game, however, the combat really, I think, needs some work at the beginning of the game. I think it's really a shame that the Crystarium and the different classes are locked at the beginning of the game. So one thing that I would do right off the bat is give players the Synergist class, give them everything. Even if it makes the game easier, it'll make the game feel more interactive. I think 13's combat system is fantastic, and I love that 13-2 just starts you off right away with all the stuff that you slowly unlock in the first game. So I would have that available to players right away. Now, this is a small thing, and it wouldn't really make a big deal, but in XIII-2, you can swap between Sarah and Noel when you get to the Brescia Ruins. So I believe in XIII-1, you should be able to play as any character that you want to, as long as they're in your party for that story segment. So, if you have, Lightning and Saz, you can switch between the two and play who you want. Or in combat, you should be able to switch between your leaders, just like in XIII-2. I think this would be a small change that could go a long way for making the gameplay start out better and keep people hooked so they get to the part of the game that a lot of people consider amazing, which is the later half. After playing Final Fantasy XIII-2 and going back to XIII-1, if your leader dies, you have to start the fight all over again, and this can become incredibly frustrating sometimes. I think XIII-2 got this perfect, and I think it would make the first game just a way better experience. I think Final Fantasy XIII-1, if you're not a fan of the story, it's going to be rough for people to stay in at the beginning. I think this is something that those quality of life changes in XIII-2 can do to improve on the awesome base foundation of Final Fantasy XIII. With this change alone, it may even justify players picking the game up again. But yeah, guys, this is what I would actually do to reforge XIII-1. Again, I think all Square really has to do is simply just re-release the trilogy, and a lot of players would be happy with that. Myself, I would be happy with that, but I think XIII-1 really deserves that little bit of an extra mile to make it a better experience for newcomers to the series. I've noticed a lot of people with no nostalgia attached to Final Fantasy, like myself when I first played these games, really like the XIII Trilogy. The XIII Trilogy was my gateway into the series. So guys, I'll be working on a retrospective about XIII-1 in the future, and I hope you guys enjoy my journey through the trilogy that I've been so passionate about since I played it back in 2012. There's so many negative videos on Final Fantasy 13, I want to spread some positivity for fans of it, and I know nowadays people have much more love for these games, as much as I did when I first played them. So anyway guys, let me know what you thought of this type of video in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? I do want to do more variety stuff like this, because I really like and enjoy playing other games, especially this year I've started to branch out and do other things. But I will see you guys next time.